Dr. Melanie Thorley. I've known Melanie a very long time. She's a very good colleague. She is director alongside myself of AchieveAbility, which is another charity. But most importantly, Melanie is manager of STAART at the University of Greenwich. And Melanie will explain what STAART is. But Melanie has been an absolute trailblazer for championing disabled students in higher education. And she is responsible for setting up START and making sure that disabled students of all levels, from degree to PhD, have the appropriate support in their academic studies. So Melanie is an absolute trailblazer. So we're really pleased to have her with us today. And Melanie is going to be talking about the importance of disability inclusive language. So over to you, Melanie.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I'm delighted to be here. Now, we just have probably a bit of a mare trying to share the screens and stuff. Screen. Sadly, I'm on my own in my office. Normally, I have a responsible adult. All the adults have gone home, and I've been left to do this on my own. Where's the... I don't use Zoom, I use Teams. Where's the share screen thing?
Right, you go down to... Now you're co-host, you go down to the green button at the bottom, Melanie, which says...
Oh, the one that says share screen on it?
Yeah, share screen.
That's a bit of a clue, isn't it?
Yeah.
Honestly, I am a responsible adult, as you will see.
Melanie was explaining to me just a few minutes ago that she was trying to get home to do this, but been stuck in her office because of some sort of fire issue.
Yeah, the fire brigade stopped me from going home, so I've had to come back. So yes, thank you very much for the invite. What I will try to do, I will go quite swiftly. So hopefully there's some time at the end. But also, if you are not familiar with Mentimeter software, I'm not on commission. I think I'm going to start asking for commission. But this is software that's interactive. So I'm not going to be sitting here and talking at you for 45 minutes. I'll be sharing some stuff. And then there will be activities where I'll ask you questions and you can post it. And it's all anonymous. And one of the best things about this software is at the end, because you will be logging into something in a minute, you can actually get a bespoke report of this session. So all of your responses, all of my slides is all in one place in one report. It is brilliant. So I will be quite quick, but as I say, Catherine's recording it, but also you can get the report at the end of it. You just put your email in and it sends you the report. And as I said earlier, we actually had a workshop in my office earlier and a third of the slides were missing. But when you get the report, it does actually fill it in, and I'll just have to try and remember what was in it. So these are just the bits and pieces that I'm going to be covering. Obviously, this is a massive subject within one area. So I won't go frantic, but I will keep up a pace to keep going. So if you've not used this before, what you need to do is on this browser, anything like that, just go to menti.com at the top and you put that 8-digit code in. And then what should happen is what you can see in front of you here will appear on your screen. And as I say, at the end, it says, do you want a copy of the report? You say yes, you put your email in, and all of this will actually be sent to you. I don't put captions on my sessions. You can do this in Zoom if you want it. I'll put 3 dots because when we deliver workshops, we always use Teams. So I'm not quite sure where it is in Zoom, but it's definitely there if you need it. And also, one of the good things about this software is that code stays on all of the slides. So if people do come late, they can still access the sessions. So obviously, Catherine's introduced me, and so I'm a stranger to the majority of you. But it did sound like I actually wrote my own reference actually at the beginning, but I didn't. So I've worked within disability support in colleges and universities for 26 years. I do have 4 university degrees. I wouldn't recommend it. I'm not doing it anymore. My head is full up. My doctorate is actually supporting deaf students in higher education. If you do a doctorate at the University of Greenwich, this is what you get to wear. Had I known this, I would have gone to the University of Leeds. Much nicer outfit, dark green, black, very subdued. So I'm not neurodivergent. People are astounded, but I'm not. But I live with fibromyalgia, and I also live with clinical depression. Now, I have had my depression. I was diagnosed when I was 12, and I'm 57. So that's 40 something. I don't do maths. I'm a sociologist. I'm very honest about my situation because I'm one of these people that, oh, go to university, it's easy. No, it's not. So I work locally, nationally, and internationally. I have provided staff training in Trinidad and also in Egypt. And yes, I've been involved with AchieveAbility for 12 years. I've been a director and trustee for 5 years. I live in Medway, can't help that. I do have a lovely husband. I've got 3 ginger cats. And because we are a child-free house, I've got 31 pairs of Dr. Martens, and you can see I wear them to my graduations. So as well as STAART, as well as disabled students, I also work nationally for disabled staff. So I'm something like the lead for South East England for the National Association of Disabled Staff Networks, which is NASDN. Google it, we're all welcome. I say views my own because I'm not always, my views are my own. They're not necessarily the universities or the AchieveAbilities and something like that. So here is your first activity. I tried not to give anything away. So models of disability, unless you're a sociologist or a psychologist, this might not have even been on your radar. But have you heard of any of these? Or if you haven't, I don't know any of these models at all. Now you can see I've hidden the responses because I work with a lot of school and college students. If they see an answer, they'll go, "Oh, we'll go for that one because it's got to be right." Quite often, if it isn't the right answer, then everybody gets it wrong. So we hide all of our responses on our sessions. Oh, we've got 15 people now. That grew. Wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, I did say that they will be coming.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just wait for a few more people to respond.
James is saying there's a problem with the quiz. Can only select one answer, Melanie.
I think, sorry, that is to do with my IT. Have been playing with my computer all day because I've lost all my Adobe, and I think it's impacted on the thing. Go with the one that you know the most about them. That's probably easier.
Linda is saying can't work quiz. I know medical and social.
Okay, I don't know. Well, 4 people have answered, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. Okay, thank you for your honesty. It's excellent that the ones you do know about are the social media. I'm not looking in the chat, by the way. I'm not looking in the chat until the end, because what will happen is I'll go into the chat and I'll start getting involved in it, and then I'll end up talking about cats, and I won't finish what I'm doing because I'm very easily led. So there are lots and lots of models. There's probably 15 or 20 now. I've only just concentrated on the main ones because obviously this is normally a 90-minute session. I've squeezed it in. So the medical model of disability is the one that's been around the longest, but sometimes it's called the deficit model or tragedy model. Sometimes it's called pity, all those really, you know, negative, pejorative words about people. So an example would be disabled people, whatever it is. This is including neurodivergent brains of people that are here. It's basically you need pity and or you need fixing. So you're not seen as a complete person, either in your body or your brain. And the focus is what is wrong, what is missing, or what is different about this person. And examples, polite examples of this would be children in need. You all know it. You all know the bear. He's got a bandage on. Some of us here, hopefully most of us, will say, actually, it's not down to us to give money to charity to support sick and disabled children. The government should actually be doing that. So that's a different argument, but that's an example. Cochlear implants, if people don't know, they give it to children. They also give it to adults, and it's an implant. So they drill into the skull and they do things to the ears because they don't want any deaf people anymore. Again, that's an entirely different, that's a whole doctoral thesis in itself. So the social model, which probably most of you are familiar with, it is a UK model as well, which is another thing. Considering what small island we are, this social model has impacted globally. So it was created mostly in the 80s and 90s. And the reason it's different is because it was disabled academics and activists who created it. Before then, anything about disability, mental health was white, middle class, Christian, non-disabled men. You can challenge me on that if you like, but I can provide the evidence that that's the cohort of people that did this sort of research. So Mike Oliver actually coined the phrase. And I think one of the reasons I am so hardcore around disability and terminology and everything else is Mike taught me, because I did sociology for my first degree and I majored in disability studies, and he was the first professor of disability studies in the world, and he was at the University of Greenwich. So that's marvelous. Basically what they said, it's more complicated with this, but I'm trying to do it like quite easily. It is not our bodies and our brains that are at fault. It is barriers. So it's either physical barriers, getting into buildings, stairs, not lifts, steps, not ramps, all these bits and pieces, and actually attitudes of other people about what you can and can't do as a disabled person or a neurodivergent person. Their motto was nothing about us without us, which is basically what I just said about research before that was non-disabled, middle class, white men. So basically they're saying don't talk about disability without involving us. And there is a big difference, and Catherine is with me on this. We don't do research on neurodivergent people. We do research with neurodivergent people. And the social model is an example of working with folk, not like experimenting on them or intervening or any of that. Most universities...
You're freezing. You're freezing a bit, Melanie.
Okay, I'm not freezing my end.
Okay, is everybody else? Can everybody else hear Melanie? Okay, can you put your thumbs up or thumbs down? You can hear. Okay, yeah. Right, fine.
That's right. So most universities, if you do find the paperwork, they say they work to the social model of disability. I can categorically tell you that that is not true, including my own university. One reason, an example, is if students access disabled students allowance, that is actually using the medical model of disability, because you have to have medical evidence to get the funding. So it's not the social model, it's the medical model. And this is also where the differentiation is between disabled persons versus people with disabilities. We are disabled, I will say this from myself, I am disabled by the environment, structures. I don't have many attitudes actually around my mental health and my physical stuff, because I'm quite a gobby person. So people are not really going to sort of like interfere with what I'm doing. But people with disabilities is used in the States and Europe and Ireland. I do have colleagues in the States and Canada who would try really, really hard to change the terminology to fit this model. So the affirmative model was a bit later. So this was created in the 2000s by John Swain and Sally French, sorry, both disabled academics and activists. So they moved on from the social model and basically said disability is not a tragedy, and quite often it actually comes with a sense of positive identity. And I'll address this a little bit in a bit about my students in particular. So their motto, obviously nothing about us without us, was great for the social model. And so the affirmative models are getting a bit leerier, more outspoken. So they had loud, proud, and angry, because there is, you know, a lot of the stuff that goes on with people is not nice. So we did start my stuff. We adhered to this model until we created our own. But because we're a university and, you know, we have to be corporate and all of this stuff, we changed it to loud, proud, and hangry, just to like make it not quite so aggressive and confronting. And we just about got away with that. So the STAART principles, which is one of the things I'm talking about today, is the model of university we're supposed to use at the University of Greenwich. So these are the things about why we did it. So I've just explained only just 3 of them, but none of those on their own were appropriate really for this day and age, the attitudes of the disabled and students and staff that I work with. So the STAART principles is a sort of like an amalgam of some social model elements and affirmative model elements and some bits of our own. So because these principles belong to the University of Greenwich, we did not seek opinions outside of our university, because this model was created by Greenwich people. So therefore we didn't go and ask other people what their opinion was. This was created by, I say 220, there was about, with the focus groups and the questionnaires, it was about 240, 250 self-selected, self-identifying Greenwich disabled students, staff and alumni. We didn't go around campus looking for people with wheelchairs or guide dogs. It was like, if you identify and you've got something to say, please take part. So we had some focus groups which narrowed some principles down. So we got about, I think there were 14 or 15 principles. And then we put out a survey to see which was the top 10. And the top 10 were adopted as our principles. So we, as a university, adopted, it was a bloody nightmare, I'm not even going to pretend. Obviously I had to wait with the HR, and then I had to work, and then some people say you've got to work with the student union, and I'm like, I'm not, no. And anyway, I'm quite a gobby person, so we got done in the end. Some of you are aware, 3rd of December every year is the United Nations International Day for Disabled Persons. They have disabled persons. They say people with disabilities, but we just pretend they don't call it that. Sadly, that was on a Saturday, which is most inconvenient. So we had our launch on the Friday. We had it on campus, Greenwich in London, and we also did it hybrid. Actually, Catherine came in person. We had about 70 people in person. We've got another 50 or so online. I am very, very fortunate. I'm not even going to pretend that this is like it everywhere else. So our big boss, our CEO, Vice Chancellor, Professor Jane Harrington, is a massive champion and cheerleader for what STAART does and what I do and what we're trying to do within the university and externally. And she actually provided the welcome to the event. It was a fabulous event. I did get very drunk afterwards and I might have broken my wrist on the way home, but the actual event itself was just amazing. And I've actually got a photo of 15 STAART ambassadors and graduates were at the event. So it's a lovely photo to have. So basically the principles are a bit like a Diet Coke version of a model of disability. The reason I say that is because I didn't have the energy or the brain power to write a full-blown model of disability because it does need a lot of work. I don't have time to do that. So here are some of our examples. I've put the link to our webpage on one of the slides, and they're all of these are on the landing page so people can see them when you feel like it. So we are not embarrassed and or ashamed of our disabilities. We all know from media coverage recently, there has been an explosion in older females with autism and ADHD diagnosis. And it became apparent when they were at home teaching their kids who were autistic and thinking, oh, I do that, I do that, I do that. That's one reason. And then the other reason is because women tend to be, again, don't start on the gender differentiations. Women tend to be better at masking it. And also females are more likely to mask because of societal, expectations and all. It's good because basically with all these diagnosed people, it's saying, well, look how all these people have managed to get to like 45 without a diagnosis. Imagine what had happened if they had all of this support and knowledge when they were 18. 92% of our disabilities are not visible or apparent. You would not know. I have fibromyalgia because I'm sit down. If you saw me walking about, I've got a very peculiar, it's like a waddle sort of a walk. You might pick up on that. But when I'm sitting down, my depression is obviously not apparent at the minute because I'm very enthusiastic and I'm very passionate about what I do. So with the social model, we had nothing about us without us. Affirmative model was loud, proud, and angry. So our motto is, we are experts by experience. So some of you will be familiar with the terms of lived experience, and some of you will also be aware of the importance of being your authentic self. So that's like a culmination of the two. Now, because of all these things, they move quickly. We will revise this in the autumn of 2025, see if we need to change anything, update it, maybe get rid of some bits, introduce new ones. We don't know, it's another 18 months. We don't know what's going to happen. So, of the 4 models that we have discussed, which do you think is closest to your view of disability from what I've just said? So you might have thought, oh no, it's the social model, when actually it's more of the affirmative model or whatever it is. And this is anonymous, so obviously you can be honest. Oh. Hide the responses. I love this software. It's fantastic. I think I'll start asking them for commission. I've got 3 so far. I'll wait until 15 people's. I'll wait until we get to about 6 and then I will. Even when I move slides, if people are still adding to it, it will be in the report at the end. I'm just going to shut down my emails, actually. Okay. I'm only going to show it because obviously we've got time constraints. Okay. There's no medical models. So that's a really positive reply. And thank you for the person who said not sure, because this is, you know, if you're all new to this, it's a bit like, oh my God, my head hurts. I've been embroiled in it for like 30 years. So the second little bit of this is about disability inclusive language. The reason we've added it onto the STAART principles is this subject is probably the most that I get requested to discuss or share with staff and conferences and all sorts of bits. It's the inclusive language is what people are more. So we've got like 12 workshops. If you want me to do any of the workshops, let me know. I'm happy to do them. But this is the stuff that we're sort of like almost known for. And I didn't say at the beginning with all my credentials and everything. Me and my team, we work with UCAS and Student Finance England, Student Loans Company, Disability Rights UK, stuff like that. We work at a national level around this, and it's good that they're listening. So I'm just going to do a little bit about inappropriate language, neurodiversity or neurodivergence, and declare, disclose or share. Obviously, we could do like weeks and weeks of this, but this is like a synopsis. So, right. So, this is to get your brains working, just make sure you're not asleep. Which inappropriate words do you rarely or never hear these days regarding disability? So disability is obviously physical disabilities, neurodivergence, eyes, ears, mental health, that sort of thing. If you get a little bit stuck, at the top right-hand corner is the STAART logo, and they are all national or international icons around the work that I do. So if you get stuck, you can use those. Or if you can hark back and think of the sort of words that are used in the Daily Mail, that might also help. And I've got to say, although I love this software, I am not a fan of their colour schemes. We had a word cloud earlier, and the ink colours were yellow, red and green. And I'm sure as neurodivergent folk, quite a few of you will have difficulty reading one or three of those bits of text in those colours. But I can't, apart from that, I can't do anything about the colours. And as it's a word cloud, if a word is bigger than others, it means that more than one or two people have used that actual word. I think from people that I can see, we're older. So there might be words actually on here that maybe the 18, 19-year-olds have hopefully never even heard of, which is one of the reasons for doing this. And again, because it is anonymous, people can be honest. I'll just wait for a few more. I'm actually making good time, which is amazing.
We've got Linda saying she can't see the words.
Yes, because I've hidden them.
Right.
We've
I'm
only
sorry.
had
My internet's a bit intermittent. I'm just hopeful that it's not impacting on other people.
I don't think, but we've only had 2 responses.
Well, it looks like it's just East London that's having the problems with the internet.
Oh, okay. Well, so what's happening with the others then? It's not doing anything. It's not showing anything.
Oh, we've got words coming up now.
I think it might be the software because of my drama with the Adobe earlier. So thank you for your patience. Yeah. So some of these words, if I'd asked like 18, 19-year-olds, they wouldn't know what a Mongol is, and possibly spastic as well. All of these, I would like to say, you know, I don't see them, but the truth is they are still used. And if you read certain papers, you will see them. But on the things, so for deaf people, maybe signing deaf people, deaf and dumb was often used. People still say things like blind as a bat. Mobility, you've got cripple, flid. Some of you might remember from people born in the very early 60s who had thalidomide from the medication during pregnancy. I can't remember the last time I saw or heard that. A lot of it is around mental health. So things like nutter, psycho, all of that sort of thing. So it is great that these words are being phased out. And I remember, well, Scope, as it's called now, was called the Spastic Society, as we all know, for people with cerebral palsy. So people with cerebral palsy were called spastics. They actually still use it in some science courses, by the way. So they thought, oh, that's not very nice. So they spent loads and loads of money, changed their name to Scope. Some of you might remember. So within weeks, the kids that were called spastics were then called scopies, because, you know, language is fluid. But the point of this is just being mindful, and how you might describe yourself, or maybe like your best friend or something, isn't always appropriate for you to say about somebody you don't know. This is going a little bit weird. Whatever that yellow line is in retarded thick does not belong in this slide. I think it's something gone wrong with the system somewhere. So yeah, try to ignore it.
Melanie, what do you think of the word remedial?
Thankfully, it's not used very often. And I don't know if anybody, educators or otherwise, would think that's appropriate in this day and age. It's the connotations of it.
Yes.
And the damage that it has done to so many adults, where you're put in a remedial class. It was like, you know, the thing on the door. And it was like for, you know, the thickos and the dunces and all of that. And because of that, it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy. Do you know what I mean? And I certainly had it. I was told I was thick as whatever it is when I was growing up. So obviously I believed it. But seeing as I've got a doctorate, and the people who said that I was thick don't have a doctorate, I would suggest maybe I'm a little bit brighter than they are. No, there is still stuff within the education system that just needs to be got rid of.
Yeah. And it has very bad connotations, doesn't it?
It's the psychological impact that this has, mostly boys, and a lot of it would have been because there was something going on that was undiagnosed. So even, you know, when I was growing up, it wasn't dyspraxia, it was clumsy child syndrome. And, you know, ADHD, well, you're just naughty, you've got no attention span. Very sort of flippant, dismissive words. I think a lot, as I said, a lot of the stuff around STAART, because I manage it, I control everything that's like printed or put out in our words. And I remember when we did the launch for the SPoD, I had an absolute bloody nightmare with our marketing and our comms people, because they were like, well, we're not interested. And I said, well, the Vice Chancellor's doing the welcome. They were like, oh, they're all over it. And they put out some sort of communication, and it literally began with 25% of our university community suffers with a disability, and put my name on the bottom. And I will not tell you how angry I got. You do not put that detritus out in my name. And I nearly sort of like drove to their office to you know, whatever. I was so incensed. And it's like you're just defeating everything that we're trying to do here with this model. So this is another bit. So there is confusion around this, and this is probably the easiest way of trying to define it. And again, these are my views, not necessarily anybody else's views. So you will hear neurodiversity all the time, right? So neurodiversity is an umbrella term, right? All the peoples are under the umbrella. All of our brains, we're all under one umbrella. And then it goes into two paths, two forks, if you like. So on the one side, you've got the neurotypical brains, me allegedly, where it, you know, the standard, boring. Some of my more gobby students refer to me as neuronormative because I don't have an interesting brain. That's fine. I've got other skills. So then if you're not neurotypical, neurodivergent, which is the language that myself and Catherine have been using throughout this conversation. So it's autistic spectra, dyslexic spectra. I didn't know until very recently that spectra was the plural of spectrum. I thought it was the other way around. So I learned something from that. But sometimes acquired brain injuries from like a bike accident, skiing accident, that's sometimes included. There are some researchers who I will not name and shame, who are now putting some mental health conditions under the neurodivergent umbrella. I don't agree with it. I think mental health conditions are very different from neurodivergence. There is co-occurring quite often, but that is not the same thing at all. So I have to be careful with that one. So, but if you think about it, so my work is different. University of Greenwich is different on this. The majority of places are still calling this specific learning difficulties, sometimes specific learning differences. Now, I am not saying that being an autistic university student or dyslexic university student is going to cause issues with learning. But that is very simplistic, because basically what you're saying is they're only autistic when they're in class, or they're only dyslexic when they're in class. This is a life thing. It affects you getting up in the morning, getting to where you're going to. It's not about learning. It's your environment. An analogy is autism, for example, is not a handbag. You do not choose to take it with you. It is there all of the time. But what we do, because I work with a lot of students, is we actually call it neurospicy. Because neurodivergent is still actually a medical model if you think about it. But it is not as medical. And it's just suggestive that the brain is a little bit different and a little bit exotic. We do not perceive neurodivergent brains as deficits. in the work that I do. So yeah, neurospicy, I think it's a nice word. I'm going to try and get it into the Oxford Dictionary. I'm not. I've got too many things to do. So this one is declare, disclose, or share. And this is another massive thing that we're known for in STAART. Where I try not to use is the really polite version of saying do not use, which I would put in bold and underlined, declare or disclose around disability, right? We're not trying to take drugs through an airport or take them into a prison. So therefore, both of those are very negative. Also, we should have the autonomy to share what is going on with our brains and our bodies, right? And if you perpetuate negative terminology, such as declaring and disclosing, people aren't going to be that keen. Why are they going to say, oh, do you want to declare a disability? No, because if that's the way that you think about it, what are the repercussions of me having something? We use share. It's much kinder and it gives more autonomy to the person to share that information. One of the things that I was involved in, there was 3 organisations. So there was STAART, an organisation called Diversity and Ability that myself and Catherine worked with, and probably some of you lot, and the National Association of Disability Practitioners, who's like one of my professional bodies. The 3 of us harangued UCAS for about 5 years about this on their UCAS applications. And I'm happy to say on the UCAS form, it does say share disability. They've probably got specific learning difficulty, but we're getting there. It's at least saying share and not disclose. I put interventions here because I work in disability and I work in like widening participation, widening access. I work with organisations in those areas like TASO and NEON and people. Their literature is riddled with the word interventions. Again, disabled folk don't need intervening with. Basically, another word for interventions is interfering with or changing. We don't need any of that. So we in STAART, we use the term something like interactions or support mechanisms. But interventions is just so it's a horrible word. And I was recently involved in a big report that was published last week, I think. And they said, oh, can you consult on this? And I said, yeah. But if you put interventions anywhere in any of my stuff, my quotes, I will just go rogue with it. They didn't. But I would have done because I'm not having it. It's the same thing. Like if you're writing a Word document or something, and if you use the synonym button, if you put interventions in Word and click on the synonym, there's about 7 or 8 different alternatives come up. Every single one of those is a negative word. There's nothing nice or fluffy or kind about the word interventions. There is no nice thing about it. If you can, we could do with some lovely feedback. Obviously, I would like Prosecco more, but we're not actually in person, so I'll have to have feedback. You can get all this on the thing. So here's some useful resources if you want to do a little bit wider reading. So Scope, who I mentioned earlier, they've got a very good definition of quite a few of the models. And the T&D online, if you're not in a university or college, you should be able to access this via Google Scholar. But that's the article that takes you to the affirmative model one. The one under that is the STAART web pages, loads of stuff. And then obviously AchieveAbility, who myself and Catherine, well, she created it. I just jumped on later in the day when it was established. So obviously I am sitting in my office, actually, I could be making all of this stuff up. I can't, but yeah. So what I wanted to say is just to prove that when you have a positive attitude and a nurturing attitude, Obviously, this is concentrating on disabled students, but it is the same for disabled colleagues. So a big part of my job is I recruit and pay some of our self-selected disabled students at the University of Greenwich as specialist ambassadors. I don't think you can quite see it, but I've actually got my ambassador uniform on because I wear it with pride. So last July, I had 8 of my people graduate, which is rude and it's selfish. I want them to stay here with me forever and not go into the world and get a job. Just stay here. So I had 2 do masters, and both of them got distinctions, which is the highest classification. I had 5 undergraduates who got first-class degrees, and one of those won the best forensic science student of 2023. And we had a 2-1 degree as well. I currently have 3 PhD students, and when I say I've got them, they were STAART ambassadors when they were undergraduates. So they were here as undergraduates. Now I've got 3 doing PhDs, and 2 of them are on fully funded scholarships. Now, getting a fully funded scholarships is not an easy task. And one of them, both of them are neurodivergent. So one of them is dyslexic, has anxiety, also had a stroke when he was 16, and he lives with clinical depression. And the other one is dyslexic and has ADHD, OCD, and social anxiety. So when I say, if you regard neurodivergent brains as equal to all of the other brains, this is an outcome, because we nurture these students and we support these students and we celebrate their differences and their quirks and the knowledge that they can bring to situations that somebody with my very boring brain. The reason I know this is every couple of years I do a screening on myself to see if I've like grown into something, and every time it just comes up and no, you're just dull. So yes, I do know I'm unusual. Some of you might be familiar with the acronym DPO, which is a Disabled Persons Organisation. The United Nations, again, they're responsible for these things. If you have 50% of your sort of like managers and leaderships come under the disability umbrella, you can call yourself a DPO. The next level up from that is a DPLO, which is a Disabled Persons Led Organisation, and that is 75% disabled. We STAART is a DPLO, and we are 100% disability, all of us. If you don't have a disability, mental health, neurodivergence, you can't actually join my team, which is opposite of like everywhere else probably. But this is just to say, because I could be sitting there making all this up, but this is, and also what we do, it's very, very difficult to measure in like conventional terms. So this is, it's almost like evidence that what we do does work. So here it is, some stuffs. If you want to email, feel free. That's our webpage again. We have got a Facebook group. There are rules and regulations for being a member, because we have to be careful. I'm in the process of shutting down my personal Twitter and the STAART Twitter because it's full of vileness and rubbish. But I have incorporated STAART into my LinkedIn, so we share lots and lots of information on there as well.
Thank you so much, Melanie. If you stop the share, we will actually go to a discussion. That was absolutely brilliant, and I think we should do a collective clap to Melanie, and thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And for your achievements, and the fact that you have actually made these things happen for people, and you're a giver, not a taker, which is why, we get on, Melanie, and you're part of AchieveAbility. Has anybody got any questions for Melanie? I think James has got one.
Can I just say I don't want any difficult questions at this time of day?
James, you're going to have to unmute.
Have I managed to unmute myself? I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. I work for a large aeronautical company with offices in various places and headquarters in Toulouse. You've probably guessed which one.
Probably, yeah.
And given it's got French and also we have got German and other places, there sometimes can be a difficulty with language.
Yeah.
Particularly, as you may be aware, in French, there is not a word for disabled, as I understand it. So I have to remind native French speakers not to use handicap when they're addressing an English speaking. And I was wondering if you come across trying to address that issue.
I think in situations like that, it's very difficult, and we have to be accepting of the fact that that's not the language of that individual, that's the language of that culture. An example of this is one of my lovely ambassadors, another rude one who's graduating in the summer, is Finnish. And in Finland, they don't have a word for disabled or disability. They've got a word for an impairment. And so she has ADHD, and throughout her entire compulsory education, she was abysmally treated because they didn't recognise it was a thing. And actually, we're her second university. She came to another UK university, and they were dreadful. And she came to us, and she's absolutely thrived. So I think in situations like that, where it's a cultural thing, you know, I think calling people out in that situation wouldn't be helpful. But what may be something that can be done is the sort of HR people at the top can do like a little, almost like a glossary that, you know, and, you know, like in Finland, they haven't got disability, but they have got impairment. And if you spoke to another disability person like myself, they would have impairment and they wouldn't use disability. So even within UK and within disability studies in the UK, their language is different. But I think if it's a cultural thing and they don't actually have that word, I think it's just you know, escalate it up to say, can we have a little glossary of because handicapped, again, you know, it's one of the worst things, and it's almost, you know, the patting the person on the head.
Yeah, I mean, on this case,
I haven't had that question before.
I mean, on this case, I did, as I did actually know the speaker, I did send a polite email saying, I know that you're French and your first language, and I could see that you were almost were unsure when you said it. I explained it wasn't quite the way.
The other thing is, though, and I know this from working with so many neurodivergent people, do not take on too many battles, because it's absolutely bloody exhausting and you're not going to do yourself any favours. So I have got colleagues who will, what you've just done, but they spend almost their entire downtime doing this on other people's behalf, and it's absolutely exhausting.
Yeah.
So you've done that one thing.
Yeah.
I would then just leave it, because it's been you think it, like, don't say, oh, have you changed all your wording yet? Because it is very easy to get onto something that you're very passionate about.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't educate everybody, James.
True.
Some people are not, you know, they
some
don't.
Some people are not worth it.
I didn't say that because I'm a professional person. Oh, somebody else. Gavin, you've got your hand up, I think. Or it's just a hand on my screen. I don't know.
Okay. Has anybody else got any questions for Melanie?
Any comments then?
I've got an observation actually. You're in a, you've said it yourself, you're in a really good position in the sense that you've now got, a vice chancellor who supports you completely, and realizes that it's about the student experience, absolutely, in terms of success. And you do a lot of work with staff. How much do Greenwich University of Greenwich staff understand what you're doing? Is there sort of like a group of them? Is it actually being filtered out quite well across the university because of the Vice Chancellor?
So we are a widening access university. We're not a Russell Group. We're not like a research institute. So we've always been, it was Woolwich Polytechnic, and obviously along with other ones, it's made into a university. So historically, we've been like a local college for local people. So we have that mentality. So our students and our staff population reflect the wider environment. So in that case, we have got students from all sorts of different economic backgrounds. We've got them all different colours, different ages, different shape, size, all of that thing. So I suppose we would have that disability is part of a spectrum of humanity. We do have a disabled staff network. Obviously, I'm involved in that as well. It is the disability inclusive stuff does come from me to some extent. And a lot of it does come from Jane, our VC. But I know of other universities where, they've got quite a sort of almost like a thriving disabled staff network community, whatever they're calling themselves. But if you haven't got senior buy-in, you're absolutely wasting your time and effort and energy and everything. But Jane, it's not just disability. We've got a very active LGBTQ plus. We've got an active women's network. We've got a BAME network. I just wish they'd changed the bloody name. It's horrible. And there's another one, but I can't remember its name. But they are as active as people who work in higher education without all their workloads can manage.
Well, thank you very much, Melanie. And
Gavin has got his hand up again.
Gavin's got his hand up.
Hello, Melanie.
Hello.
Great to connect. I'm the coordinator of South London for Dyspraxia, or was the Dyspraxia Foundation. I'm now called the Dyspraxia Lambeth. So it's nice to meet you. We also, from the London South Bank University, similar to SPoD to yourself, and they also have an internal student network and also a staff disability network. Probably not as active as yours, but it does get support from the Vice Chancellor.
So Professor Nicola Martin, who is your Professor of Critical Disability Studies at LSBU, is a friend of mine and has been 15 years. She's also a friend of Catherine, and she's also an ally for AchieveAbility. And she's just written a lovely thing about us. But yeah, South Bank is, again, you've got the Autism Centre as well, which other places don't have. It is very much there's little pockets of good practice. And I think that the best thing that we can do is find these little pockets. And, the more there are of us, the more noise we can make, the more stuff we can get out.
Sure, I'm one of your students.
Oh, you're one of their students?
One of her students. Yeah.
Oh, what, one of Nikki's students?
Yeah.
Exciting. Well, I say that she's not my supervisor. It might be very different if she told me.
No, but well, my interest is in youth development and transition from the world of from school into the world of work and also education. That's what I talk about a lot of the time, and I'm looking for a PhD supervisor at the moment.
Don't look at I've said this to Catherine earlier. I work 3 days a week. My brain is full up. But there might be some stuff some information that we have that might be useful. So yeah, send us an email, because there might be some stuff that might be useful for your research.
Oh,
I mean,
Because
super.
I'm an outreach officer. That's
I would
Oh,
have
yeah.
thought that Nicola Martin, Professor Nicola Martin, would be able to help you there. Gavin, have you talked with her about it?
She hasn't got time.
I mean, no, to suggest supervisors.
I've not had any joy at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. That's one of those things, unfortunately. But yeah, so as I say, I have connected. I've asked Melanie to connect on LinkedIn. Please do look at my website and LinkedIn profile, Dyspraxia Lambeth, and also you can see what I talk about as well. If you have any suggestions, or anyone here has suggestions, then please do connect. And thank you for what you're doing.
You're
Okay, I
very
mean,
welcome.
the Dyspraxia Foundation is no more, and I understand that there's a collection of people getting together as a group. Are you part of that?
I'm not part of that. I've been one of the coordinators for South London for the past 9 years.
Yeah.
And I'm still doing my thing,
Okay.
regardless of the closure of the Dyspraxia Foundation. So I get local funding from the local borough, and occasionally donations. But yeah, that's it.
Well done. Congratulations on what you do.
Yeah, no worries. Well, please keep in touch, anyone here, and let's say you're more than welcome to connect with us on online, LinkedIn, and Twitter, Facebook, and that sort of thing. It'd be great to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few people who have dyspraxia. I mean, Andrew Vesey is saying the Dyspraxia Collective is on Facebook. Members of the foundation are forming an online group. Linda, you have your hand up. Linda, you need to
Sorry, not
That's it.
working very well. Hi. I just wanted to ask about the student experience at Greenwich.
Mhm.
Are you able to influence how students are supported through their degrees, not necessarily through your department, but actually offering advice and support, and working with the disability support workers that should be available? Because I think, having recently gone through another university, the journey was very choppy. And I just think if we could find a way of actually improving that experience and becoming more inclusive and holistic, that might be a nice aim. But I just wonder whether is it different at Greenwich?
No, I'm not even going to pretend. So, oh, I've just spotted something in the chat that they had an autism course written by Autism Speaks. Oh dear. We won't go down that route. No is the answer, because what we do is it's student-led peer support. So we're not involved in anything academic. I'm not involved with DSAs. I'm not involved with assessment and needs. I will occasionally interfere if one of my ambassadors is being treated badly by a lecturer or something. I will put my bit in, but it's very, very separate. And also with the student experience, it can literally depend on the course they're doing, the campus they're on. So, if you've got a program leader who's inclusive and, utilizes universal design for learning in their lectures, seminars, labs, whatever, then that journey for that particular student is going to be better. And then you've got a student who's maybe doing psychology, where even like the terminology they use is still very medical model. And I know of STAART people who've had like rows with psychology academics about their use of language around things like mental health and neurodivergence. So this is the thing, I don't sugarcoat what happens. the reason that our STAART people do so well after 17 years of doing this is the support of each other and knowing that somebody's got your back. That's what the success is. It's got nothing to do with the processes are still pants. You know, the DSA applications are still a nightmare. Navigating university as a neurodivergent person, I can't even imagine what that's like, because it doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. I can't access the stuff that the students have to do to like find their timetable. Do you know what I mean? And I'm an adult who's worked here for a long time and I can't do that. So it's one of the things that I can bring to you today is, if you or somebody else is looking at university, is to do homework about that university. It's no good finding a course you like and then getting, oh, I want to go to Durham because, do you know what I mean? It's about, and also about finding your tribe. This runs through STAART, runs through Achievability. And I've noticed with a lot of my neurodivergent students that I work with, you've got like a spidey sense for other neuro people, and you can like pick them out in a crowd. And I think if you can find your tribe, you're more likely to do well and stay and to do well, because you've got people, you know, you've got your own cheerleaders.
I think it's
don't know
really
why.
interesting what you say, actually, Melanie. You can pick people out in the crowd, you know. It's actually true. It's, you know, it's body language, it's everything. It's how people respond and react to situations, and you kind of think, oh, I know that.
Maybe we can call it spicy sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll put my email in the chat. The one that I gave earlier was like the generic STAART one, which goes through to like a shared inbox, but I'll put my personal one there. I do only work part-time because of meds and everything I take, and because I'm quite passionate and noisy, so at the end of the week I'm a bit rubbish. And I am going on holiday soon. But I do try to answer emails as soon as. But yeah, thanks again for the invite. I've loved it. I might be going home now. Do you know how lovely my husband is? Just to tell you, I phoned him to say I'm not coming home because I can't get home. He has